Welcome back to the Philosophy for Philistines channel on this August 4th, 2022. Even as President Biden is once again sick with COVID, in spite of the fact that he assured us that if you were vaccinated, you couldn't get ill. Completely astounding rejection of reason. That's the only way these folks operate. I'll let the computer read this to you. I'll start it going.
Nietzsche once boasted that he could philosophize with a hammer. In metaphor, Nietzsche described how he used his philosophical hammer like a tuning fork to examine cultural idols which were naturally looked upon over time to evaluate their validity. Humanity's sacred cows, which are truly strong, ought to be timeless, not merely constructs of their time. Rather than take for granted that historic figures heralded today are indeed great, Nietzsche believed we should investigate and assess them more closely. Here is an example of the hammer's role in a section from Thus Spoke Zarathustra, in a poem entitled, The Hammer Speaks. Why so hard, the kitchen coal once said to the diamond. After all, are we not close kin? Why so soft? O my brothers, thus I ask you, are you not after all my brothers? Even as Nietzsche believed he had to philosophize with a hammer, I seek to write with a scalpel, and to do so with a surgeon's precision. My intention is to slice away the diseased and necrotic tissue of ideological possession to reveal the healthy tissue which is the very fabric of our liberty. It is only by diagnosing the source of the prevailing cultural pathogen to treat the root cause of our societal decay that the body politic will heal itself. It's impossible to be a postmodernist without being completely cynical. Indeed, to be so cynical that postmodernists can demonstrate the capacity to acknowledge the blatant corruption and failed policies of our political class, yet still support our corrupt leaders by openly asserting we ought to expect nothing more from our elected representatives other than betrayal. The blatant contradictions of the neo-Marxists behind COVID policies are on full display for all to see. Judge for yourself where the probable truth lies. So, my question is, why do folk choose to forego their own capacity for rational judgment to march in lockstep with the authorities when our leaders' policies fail to achieve the clearly stated goals they swore to us their heavy-handed measures would achieve? Wake up, our leaders never wanted to keep us safe. Why? Because neo-Marxists hate individual economic liberty and personal autonomy. The fact that the removal of our civil liberties was the only goal achieved by our leaders' COVID measures is proof what they really intended, namely the death of personal agency and choice. The results of the policies forced upon us by the global elite are runaway inflation, war in the Ukraine, looming food shortages due to a war on fertilizer, and private farming accompanied by unsustainable energy policies in concert with an inoculation program which enriched big pharma in the trillions that failed to prevent infection.
That's a run-on sentence.
We have just witnessed the largest transference of wealth to the super rich and their political puppets in the history of humanity. The only time capitalism can become oppressive is when private enterprise enters into a symbiotic relationship with the state. This relationship has a name. That name is fascism, a word derived from fasces, which was a bundle of sticks bound together carried to symbolize authority in Roman times. This bundling of private enterprise under state control was the version of socialist government employed by many European nations of the Axis powers during World War II. And yes, this is what the globalist elite are referring to when they speak about the Great Reset. Namely big tech, big pharma, multinational conglomerates, in league with the military-industrial complex, deep in bed with an emerging unelected global cabal undermining national sovereignty to sell out our national interests and undermine parliamentary oversight of democracy. Do they think we are so stupid that we cannot see with our own eyes and hear with our own ears? Biden once again has tested positive for COVID, yet he once boasted that if you're vaccinated you cannot become infected. How much evidence do we require to understand that our leaders are not working for us, and how cynical must we all be to continue to support them? Their failed policies need to be removed with the precision of a surgeon removing cancerous tissue and the source of this pathogen irradiated till the tumorous growth of globalism shrinks away, dies, and health is restored to nation statehood along with sovereign democratic control to every nation.
So there's what I wrote this morning. I want you to tell me just how cynical you would need to be after all the evidence that's before us to continue to support globalist leaders who no longer answer to their own people. I really need to understand. I'm not that smart. I'm smart enough to write this, but not smart enough to understand how it's possible that so many of you can continue to support politicians that are utterly sold out. They're not out for your welfare, and they're not keeping you safe. Wake up, think, and pray like you've never prayed before. This is going to be the worst fall in living human memory.